Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and welcome to your end of day market recap for Wednesday, May 15th, coming to you from downtown New York City. My goal, always with these end of day videos, is to give you the most comprehensive look at the market, give you a sense of all the themes and where there was momentum in the market. Depending on it's not always growth, it's not always value. A lot of times it's a mix. Certainly we've seen that in the last few weeks to few months. It's been some different leadership that we've seen in the marketplace, but in my opinion, it wasn't the different areas that were showing leadership, even though some for a little bit it was some of the defensive areas of the market. That wasn't really a negative. It was just rotation, and that's sometimes what we see in the market. I will get into some of those nitty-gritty areas of outperformers today. Before I do that, risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Please read the full risk disclaimer right there. So, one heck of a day, I would say, in terms of where we started the day. So I'll give you this very quickly. Of course, today was a big economics day, and everybody was kind of, I don't want to say everybody, but a lot of market participants were really interested in terms of what this inflation gauge of the CPI was going to be. Again, I thought it was an easier bar to jump instead of jump over, jump below. They were looking for a 0.4 and 0.3. As I said, like, that's not good. In my opinion, if the inflation report comes up as 0.4, because if you annualize that, you get to 4.8% for the year. So that is not good. Even 0.3, I would say, is not really great because it doesn't get you to what the Fed is looking for, which is, their mandate is to get to 2% or around 2%, paraphrasing from Mr. Powell. But so overall, there's a lot of work that has to be done here. But it's all about expectations, and the market has kind of shifted its expectations because the last 3 or 4 inflation reports, the CPI reports, have been a high report. So I guess it's a positive to see that come down a little bit. The other thing that it's just funny that sometimes this information is kind of buried in the details a little bit. Everybody looking at that number, of course, or for that information, the CPI, but the retail sales came out much lower than expected. So, we've seen a couple of these data points, not all the data points, but we've seen a couple of these recent data points where it shows that the consumer is weakening. This is 0% versus 0.4, and they also revised this month down. By the way, I can't tell you why the CPI report did not get revised, because yesterday we saw that big revision in the PPI. I don't know enough about why they're revising some and not the others. I don't know. You can make up your own narrative for that. I'm not going to get into the weeds with that one. But the other data point was last week was the initial jobless claims ticked up a little bit. Another data point that I saw this week too was if we go back to earlier in the week and we look at this NFIB small business optimism, only 4% of the small businesses that they surveyed think it's a good time to expand. Let me say that again. Only 4% of the businesses that they surveyed think that now is a good time to expand. So there are pockets of weakness that are in the market. And, so what happens when you have a retail sales report that misses like that? Well, you have a big move in bonds, and bonds, again, the economy is different than the stock market. And for bonds to move up like this alleviates, the pressure off of equities. And now you're actually looking at, there was some consolidation here in TLT right at the May value area, and now you're seeing a punch back into the value area for the year. So that gets us back to where interest rates on the long end of the curve, forget about what Powell controls and the Fed, right? This is long-term interest rates, which the Fed does not have a say in, right? Unless they're doing some other crazy stimulus, but they control the overnight rate. This is the 20+ year bond ETF, right? So different interest rates. And and we can kind of look at this too, because this was a dramatic move today. So just to spend another minute here really quickly, but we're looking at bond prices. Remember, when bond prices go up, that means yields are going down. So for example, you could see the 2-year drop 9 basis points. The 3-year, the 5-year, double digits. So big move down in interest rates, right? So who else is that good for? Well, it's good for the home builders, right? Because your 30-year mortgage is tied to further out this 30-year rate, which was down 8 basis points. So if you saw what happened to the home builders, which I'll review in just a second, but that was a big move. So not only that, right, and besides the TLT rallying 1.4% or 1.3%, excuse me, 1.4%. The dollar also moved down decently. So the dollar was down about a half of right. Let me see if that's where it ended for the day. Down 0.6%, right? So this to me, and I've got it right, right here. Retail sales. I don't know why this is Ling. It should be probably retail sales week. It probably should read. All right, and I've been having problems with spelling all day today, and that means risk on for equities, generally speaking, right? So that's why you saw some of the moves, like the home builders up 3.7% today, the semiconductors up 3% today, tech was up 2.2%, software, which is helped by those Monday earnings, was up 2.5%. Really got that group going, which has been a pretty decent laggard over the last few months. So nice moves there, and biotech was also up 2%. So again, all those areas to me were a bit risk on. What didn't perform for the day? I think that retail sales impacted. I saw like the restaurant stocks. Those stocks were hot for a little bit, but Chipotle I think was down on the day. Kava, I think, a couple of those names, took a breather today, right? And again, that's just what we're experiencing right now. Is just a lot of rotation. It's not necessarily like every growth area, or sometimes it's been value that's outperforming. So again, you have to stay nimble in this market and kind of pick up on some of the signals. I got a lot of questions today about Amazon. Why is Amazon weak today? I would have to think, Amazon is not all retail. Obviously they've got a lot of other components like AWS, but I would think that impacted them today too, because they were an underperformer for the day. All right. So just to kind of start where we finished, well, let's get to the let's get to the indices first. I so badly want to talk about stocks because those were, of course, very interesting for the day. But here we are. We talked about the bullish 80% roll. I talked about it like probably about 50 times, over the last 15 days, and as we broke into the value area in the beginning of this month. So that played out. So that fulfills the 80% rule, right? That's a move across the value area, and also, so what was resistance will now become support. So now that we're through the top of the value area, I thought we might hesitate there. That's where we were kind of, right around in the first hour of trading, we were hanging around the bottom of value, but buyers kind of took over and pushed through, and now 52.95 will be your support level, right? So that's S&P. The Qs as well. Let's just move over to funds. The Qs also made it out to new high, also completed their 80% roll. And amazing, for as tough as this was in the month of March, all these starts and stops and kind of failures and so forth, just a clean break through the value area with some nice momentum. So that's new highs there. And similarly, what was resistance, which was 447.10, is now going to be your support. So very nice. And again, we talked about the possibility of some type of again, a lot of these patterns aren't going to be perfect, but I thought that there was a possibility of a W type pattern that would play out, and it surely did, right? And again, just looking back at the last week, you've had to have some little bit of patience here. There's a lot of little, we talked about how in the S&P futures, let's just go back to this and then I'll move to single stocks. But we talked about, I think, how there was like 2 dojis in a row. There was almost 3 at one point. And my midday note yesterday, I was talking about 3 dojis. And of course, we rallied in the afternoon to kind of get out of that. But notice how all along here, right? We stayed above the 5-period moving average. So even if you're using something, we talk about and that the market sometimes gives us a lot of mixed signals, and it is a complicated market when you look at all the economics and you're listening to, or you turn on financial media and it's always Fed speakers and so forth. But I'll tell you, a couple of the really easy signals, the 80% rule of course helped, but price just getting above the 5-period moving average and staying above there really helped. The other thing that we've saw as confirmation was breadth expanded, right? I've tweeted that out a bunch of times about the NYSE and the NASI, right? The McClellan Summation Index and the crossover that happened a couple weeks ago, and has basically, we've seen that line continue to increase. And here's what I'm referring to, just in case you don't have this or you're not visualizing this. I brought this up, and this is the McClellan Summation Index with the 10-day moving average, right? So this also was a nice signal, and since then that line's been moving somewhat to similar. I don't want to say this is different, but you can kind of get exactly a similar signal here once this got above its 10-day moving average. All right, sorry for the word salad today. It's been already a long week, and sometimes I do that as the week goes on. So to start where we finished with single stocks, right? I talked a lot about NVIDIA coming around. I had my eye on this one, so I did execute this trade today. I mean, this is really nice. This is a nice, as we discussed in yesterday's video, just sideways, 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 right on the top of value. And then it leaned that way on the close yesterday. We talked about the semi strength in the afternoon yesterday to kind of give us a hint that there was a little bit of a change from that meme trade, right, which completely faded. And, I think if we review a couple of things that I've said was that, hey, take your money in some of these things and put it in your pocket. I was very pleasantly surprised to see AMC go up that much. I took that trade off, put it in my pocket, and moved on and looked for something better, right? We've talked about how those meme stocks, they're not the same. They don't have the same type of short interest as they had in 2021. So those moves are going to be lower in duration, in time duration. So I think overall good to see. I'm not really a fan of reversion to the mean, not the meme, but where things are just basically bouncing in downtrends, right? Those should be sold, and I talked about that specifically on Twitter yesterday. I said, hey, that's your get out of free jail. And some of the names, if you're underwater, some names that are in downtrends, right? You get a nice bounce, a huge bounce like that because all these names are squeezing. Take the money and put it in your pocket, right? So this was very nice. I think we're also seeing some option positioning. Reminder that NVIDIA reports earnings next week on Wednesday. And my thought is that this could run into the earnings. I don't know what it's going to do on earnings, but just as I said in yesterday's video, I'm long, and I want to be long, and hopefully this runs into the earnings event. SMCI, this is also something I reviewed yesterday. Holy cow, did this trigger, right? And talk about, like, this is another one bottled up, right? If we go to the 1-hour chart, and again, I reviewed this 1-hour chart in yesterday's video, every time this thing rallied, it got sold, sold, sold. So, perhaps there was a seller in this name that needed to finish up, right? It never broke out of its value area last week. It got close to it yesterday, and then right in the beginning of the day, this thing went and it just continued. So I think that if this wants to continue, 1024 is the next. 1024 is that VPOC that's up there, and just note, let's see what happened here. Oh, I'm on the weekly chart. That's why, right? 1024. Remember that level, because that's the first level, and it is bullish 80% rule, and this is a little bit further, right? So you could look to take a target at 1024 and then ultimately have the bullish 80% rule play out, which would be a move up to about 1040, right? 1040, 1041. Very impressive, right? But different looking chart than NVIDIA, and also Broadcom, right? Which also we saw some positioning and large positioning in options centered around that earnings date for NVIDIA. So that's a new high. That's a closing new high for Broadcom, and I did take off a little bit of my NVIDIA trade, and I actually substituted it into Broadcom. I like this, and I think it could actually rally into its earnings date into NVIDIA's earnings date as well. You could go one by one. I mean, there's a lot of semis that you could go through. I like this smaller cap. They're involved in measurement too for semiconductors. This is a CAMT. Also, Teradyne, remember, had really strong earnings a couple of weeks back. There was also options that went up in this one. I think I would like it if it actually filled this gap a little bit. This is a little bit too extended for me. Micron, of course, there's a lot of eyes on that one too. So I could spend another 10 minutes here on the semiconductors, but I won't. I'm going to move on because I thought the home builders were also really a really good move, and that's a break out of the value area. Unfortunately, I trimmed some of my trades yesterday just for a risk management purpose. And hey, sometimes that's just what happens. You got to get yourself to a point where you're comfortable with holding this, holding a portfolio of trades. And I decided in my mind to cut a couple names, and XHB was one of them. And this popped out to new highs, up 2.4%. But that's fine. My analysis was good. Sometimes it's kind of a little bit of peace of mind is that, hey, you did the analysis correctly, and the trade played out. So it just didn't fit my portfolio with the CPI report and everything else that I'm holding. So again, you have to be responsible in terms of what you're holding in terms of risk. Here's our watch list for the week. I mean, this has been pretty darn impressive, right? A lot of triggers on here. Pure Storage, which we talked about yesterday, continue to break out. The DELL, so again, like the AI theme was in full effect today, right? DELL servers and so forth. This broke out as well. VRT is another name. Just super impressive. All these names, coming out. So really a big day for tech and AI. Also, the other thing that people have been talking about with the utilities is possibly an AI theme in there. Those names, went. So VRT and VST, these two names that start with V, also broke out. I mean, this had a big earnings reaction, a little bit of a pushback there yesterday, but out to new highs today. CEG also out to new highs, and PWR looked good as well today, which I remained long this one, and had a nice pushback on the top of value. The cyber names, CrowdStrike, got long this name a couple days, not a couple days ago, yesterday, on this pushback above the once it got back to this Virgin point of control takeout. One heck of a day for CrowdStrike, up over 4%. Palo Alto had a nice day, also getting above here. These recent highs, and there was a few other names that were also strong in that group. The home builders I started to kind of go into a little bit. Pulte, I mean, really nice out, just like that, out to new highs. Toll Brothers, and at Pulte I did put in the TTG trend portfolio as well. Toll Brothers out to new highs. Now this is a tough name, because the stock price is so high, but I like this NVR. DHI also made, you go through the whole group here, but very, very nice strength. First day above its May value area, so very, very strong with this group. What else? The last name that I went over in yesterday's video, look at KKR, right? I talked about how I was kind of shifting my focus a little bit from the banks, which have done really well, back to the private equity companies, up 5% today, right? And this second best name I think in this group is APO, which is also trying to break this sideways range. Today it broke the value area, and I'm along both of these names in the TTG trend portfolio. So nice to see both of them get going. All right, and what else did I want to go over with you guys? I feel like I could keep going through names for a long time, but look at the move in Bitcoin, right? To me, this also confirms what we saw in terms of risk on, right? This was a big move, right after those, right after the 830 numbers this morning. But look at Bitcoin get going, and I'm still kind of undecided on the miners or Coinbase. I'm just watching these names, no position. It still is in the pattern is in this channel, like no break higher there. MSTR is the best out of this group in terms of momentum and also the chart pattern, even though it's going to have a little bit of resistance ahead of it. So I've talked a lot about breadth. One of the things, of course, that I put together in my midday note, right, is what the new highs, the 4-week new highs are doing versus new lows. Look at the list today. And what's really impressive about this is, number one, the amount of names that were on here. But number two, look at the different groups, right? Yes, there's a lot of tech and there's a lot of financials on here. But I'll tell you, like, this is there's a lot of groups that are participating. So if you're interested in receiving this note, first of all, you can get most of it for free. I put this out, once you get into like my trading account positions and the watch lists, and as well, the charts, so on and so forth, like that, you do have to pay for, but it's very cheap. It's definitely worth signing up for the free version, but I know everybody likes things for free. But the last two chart, my chart of the day yesterday was Super Microcomputer. My chart of the day before that was NVIDIA, which was on Monday. So I was a little bit ahead, I think, of the crowd, saying, hey, there's something brewing there. So in order to get that, you could go to it's ttgtrading.substack.com to get involved in that. And then just finally, guys, to get involved in our trading room, we've got a great team environment. Very impressive. Some of the traders who are throwing up some really nice trades and finding some really good setups. So that's TribecaTradeGroup.com, and you can get half off your first month of the trading room with TTG new as your coupon code. Guys, have a great night. What a great day! Congratulations on new highs in the indices, and be back at it tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody.